Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. Our guest today, David Garrett, CEO and founder of dVIN. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Now I have to do this little thing where I go. David Garrett is an entrepreneur with 25 years of experience spanning technology and the wine industry. He's the co-founder and CEO of dVIN Labs, a company that uses blockchain technology to tokenize the wine asset class, bringing transparency and innovation to the 1 trillion luxury wine market. dVIN Labs also launched the dVIN protocol and the Seller Challenge to engage wine enthusiasts and integral digital assets with traditional wine collecting. That's about sums it up, right?
That's something really wonderful written by my unbelievably great press relations team. That's fantastic. But look, it's actually much simpler than that. Like,
yeah,
we take wine, especially like luxury and investment grade wine, and we tokenize it, which turns it from being a possession into an asset, right?
What's the biggest challenge?
Possession.
Yeah, so what's the biggest challenge in doing that? Because you're taking like a traditional industry like the wine industry. I mean, if there's something that I know about the wine industry, it's they do not like, some of them, your smaller boutique estates, they will bring in modern technology and stuff, but they are not really fans of change.
Sure. I mean, look, I was a tech guy, and I sold my company and, dumped it all into a vineyard and a winery in Argentina, right? Like that's what you're supposed to do. And so I've been in the wine business for 25 years. Yeah. And I remember when I started in 2004, 2005, we were building the winery. I was making friends with other winemakers all around Argentina. And we were talking to them about we're building a website. We're going to put some information about your wine on it. And they were like, why would you need a website? Like, why would a winemaker need a website? And one of the things I say all the time is like the wine industry is single-handedly keeping the clipboard industry in business, right? Because they keep all their records on clipboards. When you walk in, all their inventory, all the information, it's all on a clipboard. And that's great. But what I'll tell you is the wine industry is absolutely, they're resistant to change, and they're certainly resistant to technology. But there's something really interesting happening in the wine industry right now, which is a big generational shift. So there's two important things that are happening. One is this generational shift, which is that the boomers and Generation X are starting to buy less wine, and the millennials are starting to buy more. And the millennials, what's interesting about the millennials is they're the first generation that's digital first. And what you saw over the course of the last 25 years is that as the millennials just started participating in different industry categories, those categories started having digital transformations. They started doing more digital advertising. They started doing more direct-to-consumer sales. They started connecting with consumers. They started offering more experiences. They basically started it's like a little wave, you saw it as the millennials started getting into fashion. You saw fashion start to embrace technology. And as they started getting into cars, you started seeing cars really start to embrace technology, and then real estate. And now really it's wine. And wine is next. And what you see is there's these two converging forces. One is this generational change, both in the consumers and in the winemakers, right? The winemakers of today, their parents weren't so into technology.
But they
But
are.
the younger generation, like they were born on their phones, so
Mm.
they know how other businesses work and they know how to connect. So they're more interested in taking advantage of technology.
Okay, so we're talking about tokenizing wine as an asset. How do you differentiate between regular wine and investment grade wine?
So wine is a giant industry, right?
Yeah,
It's
$1 trillion.
$485 billion,
That's crazy.
which is about the same size as the airline industry, right?
Jeez.
Big, big, big business. I say all the time, if you took the global film industry and the global television industry and the global recording industry and the global newspaper industry and the global publishing industry and the global video game industry, and you put them all together, it would still be smaller than the global wine industry. And the reason that I mention all those things is those are all discretionary purchases, right? Like when you go to a movie or television, like those are discretionary purchases. It's not food or shelter.
Yeah.
And wine is the same way. It's like a discretionary purchase, but it's a giant asset. It's just a big, big industry.
Well, some people.
What
some
we're
people
really
get to
focused
live.
on, yeah, that's right. But people buy a lot, right?
Yeah.
People like a lot. There are many countries in the world that are drinking wine every day. They have a bottle of wine on their table every night at dinner.
Yeah.
But that's not really what we're talking about. The
Yeah.
wine that we're tokenizing is considered luxury or investment grade wine.
Yes.
And that's a smaller sliver to be sure, but it's still about $100 billion a year, which is still a very, very big business.
Okay.
And then if you look at the investment grade wine, which are wines that actually have a secondary market,
Yes.
that's about $10 billion a year. But those wines hang out for a long time, right? There's $10 billion of new investment grade wine made every year.
Yeah.
But there's at any given time, there's about $300 billion worth of investment grade wine in the marketplace.
And they hang
So
around
it's
for
a
very
really
long
big
time.
asset class.
Like 10, 15 years, 20 years, maybe.
10, 15, 30,
Yeah,
50 years.
even.
We just
Yeah.
tokenized a 1970 wine from Graham's Port. 1970.
Jeez. Right. So I read online, and I didn't have time to verify this, but there's some investment wines that have outperformed gold. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. So you can look at LiveX is a company that kind of keeps track of pricing, and you can go and look at their indices, and their long-term basket of investment grade wine has outperformed gold and the S&P over the last 30 years.
Wow.
With less volatility. So, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like, especially investment grade wine, there's a forced scarcity there.
Yeah.
Usually by geography,
Yes.
but also by regulatory, right? Like most wine regions that make investment grade wine, they have really specific rules about how much wine you can make.
Yeah.
So as you see more and more wealthier people, the amount of wine is the same. So that's why the price has gone up.
Interesting. What happens to wine that goes off? Like from, let's say, incorrect storage conditions or cork taint or something like that. What happens then to that investment?
So that's actually a problem that we're trying to solve, right?
Oh.
So a lot of times, and that's a big problem, right?
Yeah.
So wine
Yeah.
needs to be stored and transported with correct temperature and humidity conditions, or it goes bad. And if you're in the industry, if you're like a sommelier or you own a wine shop, what you know is that about 1 in 10 bottles ends up going bad, ends up being poured down the drain. So if you look at $100 billion industry,
That's a lot of wine.
1 in 10 bottles, that means, $10 billion a year. It's a $10 billion problem.
Yeah.
What we're building, if anyone has heard of a dPIN, so there's a kind of a new interesting concept called dPIN, which is a decentralized physical infrastructure network, dPIN. And what that is it's an incentivized network of devices that are connected to the internet and connected to the blockchain that can interact with smart contracts.
Yeah.
So what we do is we put a smart contract on every bottle and like an RFID sticker on every bottle.
Okay.
And that way, as the bottle moves through the supply chain, these devices can actually record to the blockchain the location, temperature, and humidity conditions of that bottle.
Interesting.
So over time, you'll be able to like pick up a bottle, scan it with your phone, and you'll be able to see the chain of custody all the way from the winemaker to you. And see all of those temperature conditions and humidity conditions, so you'll know, oh, that bottle was properly stored and properly properly transported, or it wasn't. And that we think solves a $10 billion problem.
That's so cool.
And how awful is it to pour wine down the drain? Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, no one wants to do that. Talking about sort of the experience with wine, and wine is a very intimate experience, usually among people. If it should never, well, I want to say you should never drink alone when you're in my company now, so it's fine. You're not technically drinking alone.
I do my best to never drink alone, but I can't always achieve your goal.
You can't promise anything. Right. But like, so my point being that you're bringing digital and NFTs and stuff like that into an experience that's very personal. How do you reconcile these two things?
So I'm gonna answer that question in two ways. The first way was, as we were developing the technology, what I told everyone from the beginning, all of our developers, all of our UX designers, was we wanted to create a user experience where someone could get in and out as fast as possible and go back to drinking wine with their friends, right? Like, I wasn't interested in building like a sticky, like everyone would come to me in like, hey, if we did this, it'll be more sticky. And I'm like, I don't want it to be more sticky. I want people to get in and out and like go back to drinking wine with their friends. So that was the first thing we did. And the second thing that we did was, because most people share wine with their friends or with important people in their lives, and especially when you're drinking a great bottle, you're typically like sharing that on a special occasion.
Yes, there's an occasion.
And so we developed a really cool mechanism where when you open a bottle, you can claim what's called a tasting token, which is like an authentic proof of experience. I've tasted from that bottle. Okay. But then you can also share that with all of the people that you're tasting the bottle with.
Like a memory.
So everybody gets a little token.
Yeah.
And once we launch our native token, once we launch VinCoin, everyone will get a little bit of VinCoin that tasted from that bottle. And that kind of creates a little bit of a fun social experience. And more importantly, now you can track all of the great wines that I had and who you drank it with. So it's like your wine journal, where you can see like all of the great wine experiences.
Completely makes sense to me. It's like you're collecting memories. Last question before I let you leave. You're in Barcelona, so you're in Europe. I know there's a lot of issues, I guess. I saw in France, they're pulling out vineyards. Some people say it's a lack of demand. Other people say it's sort of a climate issue that they can't, like sort of, it's not sustainable anymore. I mean, both of those things after our conversation now, they sort of play into your business model because it's creating scarcity. But is that something that you're conscious of going forwards?
Sure. So look, there is an awful lot of wine in the world. And part of this generational change is that you're seeing more and more, or fewer millennials are drinking wine in the same way that their parents did, meaning less of them have a bottle of wine every day on the table for lunch or for dinner, right? So you're seeing less and less of that. So your less expensive wines, your dollar, like the vast majority of wines in the world are $1 a liter, right? Like very, very inexpensive. You're seeing much less of that, right? Those wines, there's a glut of those wines on the market. But when you look at luxury wines or investment grade wines that kind of have an experience in and of themselves, the more expensive wines, the wines where it's like this is a special experience, what you're seeing is that those wines are becoming more and more scarce because more and more people can afford them. and they're becoming more expensive and more in demand. So, and because there's only a very small area where you can make those wines, that's why you've seen the prices go up. So, while in the greater, in the kind of big category of like very, very inexpensive wines, you're seeing volumes go down and demand go down.
Yes.
For luxury wines or investment grade wines, you're seeing demand go up and prices go up.
Fascinating. David, thank you so much for joining me today. If the listeners want to go and find out more about dVIN and connect with yourself, where can they do that?
dvinlabs.com or dVIN Labs on everywhere. You know, if they want to find us on Twitter or LinkedIn, or I don't know. I think my guys even maybe did a TikTok. I'm not sure. But if you just look for dVIN Labs, you'll find us. We're easy.
We'll put all the links in the comments. David, thank you so much for joining me. And to the listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Darkest night when hope seems dim, he drinks to the dawn, to the fight within.